Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? This is Dr. Jones again. And today I'm going to be talking to my middle school science students. Now, we're going to be talking about rocks. And I know some people may say rocks. That's not a very interesting topic. But you'll find that we use rocks every day and they're all around us. Now, just to make sure that everything is connected, let's talk about the standard that this relates to. So first of all, when we talk about rocks, we're not just identifying rocks, but we're using rocks to give us an idea of geologic time, or the time that things happen on the planet. So what you'll find is that based on where the rock is, based on how the rock was formed, we can get an idea of what was going on the planet at the time that that rock was formed. Now, first of all, what is a rock? Well, think of a rock as being a mixture of minerals, okay? In a very similar fashion as you would have different ingredients or you would have different parts of a meal, the minerals will dictate not only the composition of the rock, but the type of rock that you have. And when we talk about minerals, we're talking about elements that have specific chemical compositions, meaning they're made up of the same type of element, like all carbon and oxygen, or all silica and oxygen. And they have a very unique structure, such that you don't have minerals having one form here and then that same mineral having another form here, okay? Now, when we look at our minerals, there are 7 big groups. I'm going to talk about them right now. The first group is called our silicates, all right? Silicates are where quartz fall. Now, in its raw form, this is what quartz look like. However, when you look at how we use it, you find that quartz is a very important component of digital watches, and you'll also find even some of your calculators will use quartz, and it looks like sand. But what you will do with that is create all the different numbers that you would need, okay? Another one would be oxides. Now, this one is called limonite, obviously because of the color. But I think that part of the reason that they called it limonite is it resembles a lemon, but there's no relation. Sulfates. One type that we use a lot is gypsum. Now, in its raw form, you may not recognize gypsum, but understand that gypsum is one of the main compounds, the main material that you find in sheetrock, okay? So anytime someone builds a wall, punches out a wall, you actually are using gypsum. Next, sulfides. One of the most well-known sulfides is pyrite. Now, you may not know pyrite by its scientific name, but you do know it by its common name, fool's gold. All right? So just make sure when you get that gold chain, especially from your boy, you know that it's gold and not pyrite. Next one, carbonates. Now, one of the carbonates that I want to talk to you about is dolomite. Now, if you look at dolomite, it almost looks like you have salt crystals on top of a rock. Well, the first time I heard this, and the first time I mentioned this, a kid was like, "Hey, Dr. Jones." I'm like, "Yeah, I saw dolomite on television the other night." Well, let me explain something. This is dolomite. This is dolomite. Here's the difference. This guy is Rudy Ray Moore. He was the original. This guy is Eddie Murphy playing this guy, Rudy Ray Moore, but no relation to this. Natural minerals. We're talking about gold and we're talking about diamonds. They're actually minerals that are pure in that all gold is just gold. It's not a mixture. Diamond, just diamond, not a mixture. It's carbon. And the last one, halides, commonly known as salt, like table salts, okay? So these are the ingredients, these are the minerals that will give us all of our rocks. Now let's talk about rocks, because just like with our meals, there's different types of rocks because of different types of compounds. Just like with different types of meals, you have different types of dishes. Here's what I mean. If you have breakfast, 9 times out of 10, you're going to probably have like eggs, bacon, something of that nature, maybe a bread, like, I don't know, pancakes. But if you're talking about dinner, now you're talking about like steak, potatoes, salad. So when we look at some of these, you can actually tell the type of rock based on the minerals. So in this case, if we're looking at this is granite. Inside granite, you have 3 main minerals. The first one being mica. That's the black areas you see here. The second is quartz. Those are the gray areas. And if you look in between the gray and the black, you'll see some white areas. That's your feldspar, all right? Which is another mineral. So altogether, these minerals will give you granite, okay? Now, again, let's talk about our types of rocks. Because again, using the metaphor that rocks are like meals, you have 3 meals: breakfast, dinner, lunch, all right? For beginners. Now, with rocks, you have sedimentary, you have metamorphic, and you have igneous, all right? Your sedimentary rock is normally characterized by this stripe or stridation. Basically, you have lines, okay? Metamorphic rock normally has a marbling kind of effect, or you can see like waves and patterns in it, okay? And then your igneous rock can be porous, all right? And they have areas where you could have air get trapped inside. And we're going to be talking about the characteristics of all of these. But first, let's talk about how they're formed. So let's start with sedimentary rock. So in sedimentary rock, you have the word sediment. Now, what's sediment? Think of sediment as being like small pieces of sand or gravel or stone that have settled out in a body of water. So when we're talking about sedimentary rock, we're talking about rocks that are formed from the settling of sand, gravel, and stone. Now, some of these that you may be familiar with. First of all, limestone, okay? Another one is chalk. Yes, the kind of chalk that folks use on the sidewalk, yes, is a type of sedimentary rock. And then you have sandstone. If you've seen any movie that deals with ancient Egypt, you'll find that they always talk about writing on sandstone. Well, part of the reason is that these types of rocks can crumble. So it's easy to carve into it because it doesn't have the same kind of consistency, or it's not as hard as some of the other rocks. Now, let's talk about igneous rock. Now, when you see igneous rock, I want you to think of ignite. Here's why. Igneous rock deals with molten rock or magma. So think about things being very, very hot. And the rock actually develops when this magma cools. And so just like with the volcano and just like with that brownie example, when you pour it in, it comes out as a liquid. But as it cools, it becomes a solid. And that solid will have different physical characteristics than the liquid did. If you think about a brownie before you pour it into the pan and the brownie after it's been in the oven and it comes back out, you'll notice that when it comes back out, it has that bready texture where when you put it in, it almost looks like, I don't know, a thick cream, almost like Play-Doh, okay? So when we're looking at our igneous rocks, okay, one that is, we already talked about this, is granite. Granite is an igneous rock. Another one is pumice. Now, most people are familiar with pumice when they think about pumice stones. And you use these if you go to the spa, if you get a manicure, pedicure, get your full body care, dealing with a pumice stone. Obsidian is one that most people aren't familiar with, but they know it when they see it. Because with obsidian, it is so dark that you'll find it takes on other colors of the visible spectrum. So sometimes you can shine a light on obsidian and you'll see like flecks of green or flecks of violet, okay? Now, the last rock that we're going to be talking about is metamorphic rock, all right? And here's why. First of all, metamorphic rock actually come from the other two. Here's what I mean. Metamorphic, think of metamorphosis, where you're doing a transformation from an immature state to an adult state. Well, in the case of rocks, what you're doing is you're taking either sedimentary rock or igneous rock, applying a good amount of heat and a good amount of pressure, and you're turning it into a new thing. So one example would be slate, okay? And some people use slate, especially when they're making like water fixtures and things of that nature. It breaks apart very easily, but it is also good for tools. So for example, when Native Americans would make various arrowheads, and when they would make spearheads, they would use slate because you could break it off and get a nice sharp edge. Another one, marble. That is a metamorphic rock. Greeks used marble a lot for their statues. They also use them for columns. Marble is very, very strong, kind of like granite, but different. And then you have something that is known as Hemomorphic Rock. Now, here's the thing about this rock. If you notice, the outside is completely different than the inside. So sometimes you have those like gemstones or those gem rocks that you crack open and you see all the crystals inside. That would be in this category. And again, how did they form? They formed when we took sedimentary rock or igneous rock and applied heat and pressure. Okay? So now that we've gone over the major types of rocks, the next time I see you, we're going to actually look at the physical characteristics and real life rocks so that you could practice being a geologist on your own. I hope that you have a great morning, and I'll see you next week.